Good afternoon, South Africa, and a very warm welcome to you. This is Afternoon Express. Now, the time, my friends, has come for us to take a stand and make a difference. It's almost a daily occurrence now that the minute you open Facebook, a newspaper, or a news website, a child in this country is either hurt, raped, or murdered. And more often than not, it's by someone they know.
Absolutely. And in light of that, we bring awareness to Child Protection Week, which basically aims to bring more awareness from the public to all the rules and regulations surrounding the protection of children, and also the rules and regulations stipulated in the Children's Act, which was laid out in 2005.
Now, today we are bringing you people that dedicate their lives to protecting our children and to child protection. And of course, hopefully we'll learn how to take some steps and measures to make a difference.
Absolutely.
Yes, South Africa, so it's a very important conversation to be had, and I hope that you will be joining in. You can find us on all of our social media platforms, Afternoon Chat on Twitter, as well as Afternoon Express on Facebook, because it is something that it does not only involve those who are doing this work on the field, it involves you and I as well. We've all got a role to play in this conversation. Now, you might be wondering, on a Friday, the weekend is upon us, what we'll be making in the kitchen today. We've got two dishes, but both involve how to use my favorite ingredient of all time in ways that you would never expect: café.
I love coffee. I love coffee. So today we're going to use it in two different dishes. One, not that surprising, in a brownie dish.
Okay,
it's going to be so delicious. But also, which is the first dish we're going to do, is a savory take on a baked beans dish. Hang in there with some beautiful maple, beautiful bacon, and a coffee, of course.
It's almost as though like you made your coffee, you made your breakfast, and then by mistake, like you bumped the table and your coffee fell into it, and now you found ways to turn that into a dish.
Kind of. That's almost what happened.
Well, probably it doesn't sound delicious. It is delicious. It is looking so yum, and I cannot wait to cook with you live on Afternoon Express. Today it is a Friday, and our conversation needs to get started on the couch, so join us. This is Afternoon Express.
Last year, December, we featured Peace Home, a sanctuary for abused and abandoned children in Cape Town, founded and self-funded by child protector and sexual abuse activist Aziza Nolan.
At the time, she was overseas in the UK, and with this week being National Child Protection Week, we've invited Aziza to join us in the loft to talk in more detail about what this week means and the work that she does. But first, this is what her friends and colleagues had to say last time when they were here.
She's an amazing lady. I have one word to say. She's a Muslim Mother Teresa. It's the only way I can explain it. I don't know if that's right or wrong. She's got the most incredible heart, and she will give everything for her children. And she has got the most incredible experience for the children, and she knows exactly how to manage her children and work them well.
The first thing you feel when you walk in that house is love.
Wow, welcome to the loft, Aziza. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me for the second time.
Absolutely. So you run a children's home. You're passionate about the protection of children and their rights. You are self-funded as well.
Yes.
How long have you been running the home, and what work do you do there?
I've been doing Peace Home for the last 6 years. As a child psychologist in London, I just came to, where I came to Cape Town, and there was a very, very bad for kids that have been sexually abused. And people were just running around, they didn't know what to do. And I took them, whereas the girl came with a little story that the man touched me, he washed me, and I'm crying. And I went to the police sent me to Childline sent me to Safeline sent me to social workers.
They gave you the
and I'm standing in the middle of the road, what do I do? And you need to know where it happened. I don't know these children. I don't know where they lived. And I just closed my eyes and I said, I just mentioned a name, an area. I said, okay, we're gonna send you to detective. When I picked up the second one from school, as I walked in at the police station, she turned around and said to me, and he put his penis in my back. And I'm like, okay. And I spoke to the detective and I said, look, these children came with a story. As a child psychologist, we need to look into it. And he interviewed both of them. The oldest one spoke, the second one, she needed play therapy. And he said, Aziza, you're right. Can you meet me the next day at Joosta Hospital to have the kids examined? That moment, the next morning, I had 5 of them, 5 sisters and brothers. I grabbed them all. I said, let's go to the hospital. So now I need to explain to them what's happening. And through the exam, it was yes, 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 yes.
Wow.
And I looked, and I'm playing with him half and speaking to the doctor, and I have to take my different hats off because emotionally, I couldn't get myself down. I couldn't just start crying. These children need help, but also they don't really know what's happening. That time it was quite difficult because as soon as a child is confirmed sexually abused, you need to get a vaccine. You need to be treated for, take a blood test if you're HIV positive or if you got AIDS. So with that procedures, we have to come back in 2 weeks' time. So 2 weeks' time, it was sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Again, the social workers said to me, we can't put the kids under counseling because you need a mother. Again, another journey, have to drive around the whole Cape Flats to look for this child's mother. Finally, we got the mom, and it came back that she's in denial. She's in denial.
Why? Who
what's
was
happened.
the perpetrator?
The kid's stepfather. At that moment was the stepfather. Afterwards, it came the boyfriend or so.
Now, these are just 4 children. This happens across our country on a daily basis. What, in your opinion, is the main reason, I suppose, for such rife abuse?
I would say poverty, but again also, when it comes to, I won't say it's, in this specific case, I won't say it was because her mom didn't have education. This woman had education. She had a good job. She just got herself involved with the wrong people. Another incident where I had, also one of my cases that I was involved with was 2 girls that was who used to live on the street. They used to beg in the daytime. At nighttime, they have to go and sleep around with men.
How old were they?
7 and 8.
No.
7 and 8. We are now still busy with the trial.
So what happens with those girls? Are they currently in your care?
They have been removed from the mom. We went in, we literally have the brother also removed. And then on top of that, we found out that there's a child syndicate going around, a pedophile, and somebody that had been also child trafficking.
Now, I understand that you take in a lot of these children into your home. You currently have 9, I think, children in your care. And I think what you do is absolutely remarkable. For people to turn around and call you, the Muslim Mother Teresa is beautiful. But surely there should be much bigger systems in place to protect our children. Why is it that there isn't that money and there isn't that security going in to protect our children?
And why is it that you're self-funded? I mean,
like I said, when I started off, it all happened with standing in the middle of the road and couldn't find help. And that's the time when I was still working overseas. I was still a child psychologist. And I just said to myself, as an educated person, as someone who doesn't have a low self-esteem, someone that haven't been through abuse, I don't know what the street life is about. What about the person who goes through that on a daily basis? How are they going to get help if I have been sent from left, right, and center?
Yeah.
And that's where the voice for the voiceless came in.
Absolutely. So
that's where I became
an activist.
Yeah. So back to the Peace Home and what you do as the Peace Home. So you offer foster parenting while you look for adoptive parents for the children?
Yeah, kids, I do have abandoned kids. I do have, in fact, kids from different aspects of abuse, but also very bad cases where you don't know where to start with them. I get the kids in, they come to me, say example, the kids that was living on the street. They come in for a period of 3 months while it's all investigated. Then the counseling starts. Then I start funding the counseling. Then the kids are so scared. The one person they're scared of is the police. Ask them why the police. Because my mom said, we must shout, we mustn't trust the police. And when they have to come and interview the kids, I have to set my table and make it that the police are my friends. So we can interview the kids and the detectives can speak with the kids. My kids, it took them almost 8 months to get used to the man in the uniform.
Wow.
3 months is not enough. What I'm doing is not a normal safety haven or a normal fostering. I'm here, I'm giving the children love. I'm giving the children a house where they can call home. Security. They can go to bed at night, pull the blanket over them, nobody's going to touch them. Peace Home is all about love. These children didn't know how to hug. They didn't know how to interact with each other. But not just that, they didn't know how to sit down and eat. They never sat by the table. So it's a lot of teaching.
Yeah.
As soon as I found out they had been abused in a bad way, I called the police and I do make a case. And we do go after the people who does it. And up to date, we do have at least 7 people behind bars. So I go through the trial, everything with the kids.
Well, we really want to honor you for the work that you do. It's absolutely incredible. It's people like you who give us hope for our future in this country.
You're going to be back on a couch in a little while, though, and we're going to chat more on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. You do such amazing work.
Thank you.
Indeed, such inspirational stories. I think what's really cool to notice is that real heart behind the humanity of it all. The reason why she finds ways to fund these projects is because a true heart for these kids, sees who they are for their entire dignity and is able to find resources for them, which is absolutely beautiful. After the break, we're going to be chatting to Shaheema, who's going to be telling us more about the Saki Bartman Center. It's all about engaging in this conversation, so keep the conversations happening right now. And if you don't know who Saki Bartman was, use this ad break to find out more. We'll see you after this.
Get a taste of the smooth life and you could win big when you buy Tropica. Follow the entry details on your Tropica bottle and stand a chance to win daily airtime prizes, a weekly giveaway of an experience with a Tropica Island of Treasure contestant, Sunglass Hut vouchers, Daniel Klein watches or LG home appliances. You could also win the grand prize of a brand new Kia Sportage. T's and C's apply on tropica.co.za. There's nothing smoother than winning with Tropica. Don't forget to watch Tropica Island of Treasure Seychelles every Monday at 7:30 on SABC3.
Welcome back to Afternoon Express. We're live on 3. Now, Saki Bartman, for those of you who don't know, was a Khoikhoi woman born in the late 1700s in the Eastern Cape. Now, because of her distinct features, she was forced against her will to parade in a freak show in Europe, where she was also kept as a slave.
In her honor, in 1999, the Saki Bartman Center for Women and Children was founded, a center that provides a safe space for women and children who've suffered domestic violence as well as sexual abuse. And it was the first center of its kind in South Africa. We're joined now by Shaheema McLeod, who is the director at the center. Welcome to the loft, Shaheema.
Hi, Shaheema. Tell us about some of the work that you do at the Saki Bartman Foundation.
Well, I think first and foremost, we provide safe accommodation to women and children that have been exposed to some form of violence. And we provide safe accommodation for 120 women and children at any given time. And they live for 4 to 5 months with us. In addition to that, you know, it's not just good enough to offer safe accommodation. You need to look at the counseling intervention, the therapeutic intervention, their legal needs and requirements, whether upskilling is required, and parenting skills, you know, because many women don't know how to parent because of their circumstances that brought them or led them to that point. So that's in a nutshell what we offer at the centre.
Are we seeing an increase in reported cases of abuse against women and children in the past year in South Africa? And where are the statistics at the moment?
Well, I think that there's a combination of elements that come into play. Violence against women and children, particularly children, has been around forever. It's just that it hasn't been reported upon as often as it is today. And we've now seen this year alone that 19 cases have been reported in the Western Cape, which is very concerning. We've tried to highlight this in media and to the South African Police Services. We find that there is a reluctance to report sexual offences cases or child abuse to the appropriate authorities because quite often we find that nothing is done about it. And that is a problem that we are experiencing within the judicial system. In terms of the statistics, you know, we know that a child or that a woman is raped every 13 minutes in this country, that 1 in 5 children would have had or would have been sexually assaulted before the age of 18. Now, there's something horribly wrong with those statistics. The fact that we see an average of 3 children and women being killed by those known closest to them on a daily basis, that should raise alarm bells. But yes.
Why is our system letting our women and children down in such a horrific way?
I think off the top of my head, I'll say that the first problem is that there's a lack of political will to champion this work. We don't see the leaders of our countries standing up and saying, well, you know, we need to throw some funds at this work to ensure that there's proper intervention strategies in place, that we can ensure that there are safe spaces for women and children to go to when they are needing help. We see that there isn't resources being thrown at education and awareness. Education and awareness is key. Without that in place, the community won't know where to go for help.
Because if kids don't know that anything wrong is happening to them, because I can't believe that you're saying that there's 19 reported cases. That's probably happening in a day.
Yeah.
But so do you think the abuse has gotten worse, or people just aren't talking about it?
It's an uncomfortable topic. No one likes to talk about it. And that is one of the things that's key. We need to start the conversation, ensure that there is continuous conversation about what is plaguing our communities, and that we're not prepared to stand for it anymore.
Sure. What are the procedures in place for reporting a child abuse case or a abused woman?
Yeah, and from there, like, what happens for them to then get into a home like yours? So what is that process?
Well, the first point of entry is meant to be the South African Police Services or Child Protection Services, child welfare within the Western Cape as we know it. But we find more and more that children are more prepared and willing to disclose to an educator, someone that they trust implicitly, that they know is going to assist them. And from that stage, they would approach agencies such as the Saartjie Center to then ask us to facilitate a process where we engage with the legal entities and ensure that justice is served.
So say a child is abused and now she maybe wants to go and report it to at a police station and can't call Childline because some kids don't even have phones available. What would typically happen in a police station if a child walks in and says, I've been abused?
Well, there's supposed to be a trauma-friendly room, and that's not available at all police stations. We know this.
At many police stations.
I think within the Western Cape, we've got 18 trauma rooms set up at different police stations. That's not enough. It's not reaching our townships or our underprivileged communities. So that's the first problem. Secondly, the way in which the cases are being managed, process isn't being followed. I think I have to touch on the fact that we see that your top brass or the leaders within the government departments have access to the training and the knowledge of what is being done, what's supposed to happen, but that being filtered down to grassroots level, to the individuals that actually face this on a daily basis, that is sadly lacking.
I mean, the police themselves, our police service seems impotent in the face of this mounting scourge against women and children. I mean, what is the cause of that? Why are police not seen as the enemy of the community?
Why they are seen as the enemy?
Yeah,
well, I think because of some of the bad responses to individuals stepping forward and asking for help. You know, I understand that they feel overwhelmed. And that they are overburdened with all the crime that's happening.
Is it not also because police are usually men? Could it not be for that? Because they see men as largely being the perpetrators.
Absolutely.
Aren't there other places where children can go, like other community centres or hospitals where there are people who are equipped to deal with this kind of situation?
Yes, absolutely. At the hospitals, you can go to the trauma centres, the Tutuzela care centres, who offer assistance for victims of sexual violence.
But children aren't aware of that. Children aren't giving that information to know that if anything happens to them, this is what they can do.
Surely. And that's what brings us back to education and awareness. This is supposed to be happening at school level. Within primary schools, that children must be educated, not only around their rights, but where do we access services if we need the help.
Thank you so much for coming here, and I really hope that we're going to make a huge difference with this show. Thank you. You're going to be back on our couch a little bit later to discuss this further.
Thank you.
And that conversation on the couch is going to be absolutely vitally important because we're speaking quite a lot about what everyone else can do. What can you and I do? What is our response and what are we doing as civil society? It's a really important conversation to be had. That's happening later on the couch. But directly after the ad break, we're chatting to Soraya Hendricks, a children's author. How do we start speaking to children about these issues? She's got more details after this.
Afternoon Express is big on fashion and big on food. Follow us on Instagram to check out who wore what and find our mouth-watering recipe recaps so you can dress and dine the Afternoon Express way.
Welcome back to Afternoon Express. We're centering our conversation today around the protection of children, and as we continue our wrap-up of National Child Protection Week, we're joined now by author Soraya Hendricks, who's recently released a unique children's book aimed at teaching kids the dangers of trusting strangers.
It's called The Legend of the Gilded Scroll, and it's set in a fantasy world where young superheroes fight against an evil witch to save the children of the world. And the book has been approved by the Gauteng Department of Education to be used as a part of the Life Skills curriculum. Welcome to Afternoon Express.
Thank you for having me.
Now, where did the need, I suppose, for you come to write this book? Because it is quite a sensitive topic. What was your motive, I suppose, behind writing it?
Okay, I had a very bad experience about 20 years ago with my friend. She went shopping with her 3-year-old son in a mall, and while she was doing shopping, she was holding his hand, and then she saw a dress, and she let go of his hand, and she took the dress to look at the price. She looked at the price for a second, hung up the dress, and she wanted to take his hand again, and he was gone. Someone had stolen him. And she was also pregnant again at that stage. So with a big tummy, she was running around looking for her son. She was alone, nobody could help her. And about 30 minutes later, she saw her niece walk towards her with her son. Apparently, her niece was walking into the mall, and the Indian woman was walking out of the mall with him. And then she approached the woman and said, "Where are you taking my cousin?" And the lady told her that she was going to the management because he's lost. But she was outside the mall already.
Oh,
and
I feel sick.
So, yeah. That is how I
crazy.
felt, and
That's
I
crazy.
decided then that I needed to do something. I didn't yet know what, and only years later I decided to write a book about it. Yeah.
That's incredible. So glad you did something, and we all need
Stranger
to do
danger.
something.
May I have a
Yeah.
look at your book? Sorry.
It's called The Legend of the Gilded Scroll.
Yeah.
Who is that character?
The character is 3 characters. The one is UZV, the main character, and the other girl is Velvet Ice. And then Gero is the 3rd character, yeah, and they're the superheroes. In the book, they go and save a child that has been stolen by Nada. She's the witch, she steals children, and she eats them when she gets the children. So they take the human child on a journey, and they teach the children how to recognize a stranger, a nice, dangerous stranger. But there's a scene where a stranger offers a child a sweetie.
Yeah.
And then the superheroes will warn the child not to accept any sweets.
Absolutely. I mean, I have 2 boys, 6 and 7. I do not allow them to speak to any strangers, even if the stranger is being nice. Even if a stranger is saying, "Hi, that's a nice ball," I say to them, do not respond, do not look at them, do not entertain a stranger. Period.
Yeah.
You can't even take a risk.
Definitely not. Now, we headed out to Witchwood Primary School in Johannesburg to hear what some of the kids and teachers had to say about this fantastic book.
The Legend of the Gilded Scroll is very important. It catches their attention and they learn a lesson from the book. It's very bright, nice illustrations, and children love to look at pictures, and they can actually get the gist of the story from the pictures in the book, and then they learn a very good moral at the end.
Yes, I did enjoy the book, and I liked it because it taught me not to trust strangers or take directions from them, and I would like to read it again.
UZV is a character who protects children from neither the half witch and half human. She eats children.
I enjoyed it because it teaches you about trust. Never trust strangers.
The book taught me to not talk to strangers.
They say, come get a chocolate, come in our house and I give you a chocolate. I mustn't do that. Otherwise they can do bad stuff. I learned that you must never trust strangers and that you must never accept anything from strangers.
My favorite character is UZV because he is a hero and he saves children.
Nada is half witch and half human. She likes stealing children, and once she turned a child into a dragon and made her for dinner. My favorite character is Velvet Ice because he's a superhero and he saves people. UZV is this boy, and he's a tiny superhero, and he has to protect children from the dangers of Nada. I did enjoy the book because it was very, very interesting, and I can't wait until I read it again.
So you tell your kids not to talk to anybody, but what else is stranger danger? Like what, I mean, I'm not a parent, but so what else should children be looking out for?
Okay, what they should look out for is a stranger asking them for directions. You must tell your child that an adult can always ask another adult for directions, and they are not allowed to give any directions.
Yeah.
Because what they do, they'll call the child to the car, can you please show me where the shop is? And put the child into the car, and your child is gone. Some strangers, they watch your child for months. They learn.
They target them.
They target them. And they learn to know what the child's name is.
Wow.
So they'll ask their friends, who's that lovely friend of yours? And the child will say, her name is Bonnie, you know. And they'll say, Bonnie, your mom's had an accident. So they watch you as well. Can you come with me? And the child will get into the car because she's worried about her mom. And the child is gone.
Yeah.
The parent as well. The parent should interact with the child and give their own lessons, but because they know their child, they know what their child will do. With my son, I had to tell him, don't accept any chocolates from strangers. Yeah. And he had the audacity to ask me, can I accept half a chocolate? You know.
Shame.
And so it's things like that. There's 10 rules and regulations in the book, but there are much more that you can teach your children, and you know your child. So the parents, they've got to interact with the child.
And of course, it's the responsibility of schools to educate the children, but I mean, I think it starts at home with children, with parents also being more involved in their child's life.
And now it needs to start earlier, way earlier than it used to before.
Yeah, you've got to read to your child. If your child can't read, then read the book. There's a lot of illustrations, and the illustration speaks for itself. And you can save your child with one rule.
Yeah.
Don't speak to strangers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Right, so we're hosting some incredible conversations on the couch, but I'd love to hear from you. Have you been sharing your thoughts with us? Hashtag Afternoon Express on our Twitter pages as well as our Afternoon Express Facebook page. If you want to find us on Twitter, we're at Afternoon Chat. Now, coming up after the break, we bring all of our guests onto the couch to continue the conversation. I'll be joining this time with some extra viewpoints, and I was also thinking after the break, we're making something that's got my favorite ingredient of all time. A good cup of coffee keeps you nice and warm in the morning, but sometimes breakfast takes too long to prep. So we're going to show you how to combine your coffee and your breakfast in one. Stay tuned.
Sea Harvest. New look, same great taste.
A warm welcome back to Afternoon Express on SABC3. So we're in the kitchen and it's time for us to do one of my favorite things, get cooking. And I know this week has been a long week for you so far. And I know the two things that would have got you through the week. Number one is Afternoon
watching
Express.
our show, yeah.
Thank you, very well done. We paid him to say that. And the second thing was, which we've also paid you to say,
coffee.
Coffee!
Who's paying me? Where do I go at the end of the show?
Clem, not now, we're live, we're live. All
okay.
right, all right. Let's talk more about how we can incorporate coffee into our meals. Because I mean, this first recipe with pork, yum, deliciousness, baked beans and coffee, never heard of in my life.
Well, I'm going to put you to work first. So I've got some baby leeks for you so you can start chopping.
With this guy?
Yeah, any knife. You went for the bigger knife, that's perfectly fine.
The stems or the tips?
I like both. There's different... Okay, my goodness.
How big do you want them?
I like that. I like nice and chunky. So you spoke about coffee being used in... We kind of sometimes know about coffee being used in sweet dishes.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no reason it shouldn't be used in savory dishes.
Totally.
It's super earthy, very nutty, and for that reason, if you pair it with flavors like maple and like bacon, you're going to have an amazing result every time.
I must tell you a story about coffee and incorporating into savory dishes. The first time I ever commissioned Clem to help me cook something, it was for a competition I was part of with Fair Trade, and we're trying to create a dish made out of coffee that had to do with savory ingredients, and I made it into coffee rub, and you taught me how to do that.
And then what happened at the end of the competition?
I won! All
and
thanks to
everyone
Clem.
else cried because they lost. It was amazing. I offered them tissues, and when they leaned out their hand, I just pulled it away. Sorry, no. Winners only.
So thanks for teaching me about how to use coffee in dishes. I appreciate it.
And especially meats. Meats go so well with coffee because of that robust flavour of the meat and of the coffee as well. So Willie's have expert coffee, you think you know coffee, right? These guys are insanely brilliant when it comes to tasting coffees and selecting coffee beans. So they travel the world getting the best beans and they bring it back here and they roast it the way it's supposed to be done. I mean, what's the point of traveling the world and you don't roast a good coffee? So they've got the perfect product in the bag that you're going to get consistently delicious every single time.
And they grind it for you if you want it ground.
That's
That's
right.
my favorite thing about them.
And my new favorite thing is I actually learned something. We get your leeks in the pan. I've been storing my coffee the incorrect way. I always store it in the fridge.
Oh, I never done that. That absorbs all the moisture. That it takes all the moisture out of the bean.
It actually absorbs a lot of odor from the fridge.
Yeah.
So the best thing now is Woolies have these new keep fresh little tags on the bags. You can see that's a little black strip.
Those I've always had them. They've always had that though, which I've.
And then you just keep it in the cupboard.
If you lose them or they come off, just use a peg. It's one of my favorite things to just use a peg to keep it closed. I know it's much better to do it like that, but the pegs work too.
I know what you mean.
Because you keep folding them down, you can keep clipping those things around. Which is
But
great.
really, I feel so silly. I've always stored it in the fridge, thinking there's oils in there. You got to keep it. Look at you, AJ McCarthy.
Never. Room temperature, my friend, away from the sunlight.
Yeah. And so, how do you prefer having your coffee?
So I've got many ways of having a coffee. I'm quite pedantic about it because I've obviously grew up in an Italian home. We always had a coffee machine at home, and coming to Cape Town, every time I go and visit, I always tend to go and order like the artisanal things. But if you give me a cortado, it's one of my favorite ways to have coffee.
Me too, yeah.
It's like a shorter flat white, and then or I'll have a macchiato, which is delicious. Single shot of espresso, foam on top. Delicious, yum.
I like when you go foreign.
And the one thing that you've never had in South Africa ever before with these coffees is what's called a vetrino, which is basically a little bit of condensed milk, a single shot of espresso, and foam on top. So it's white, brown, white, and it's so yummy. You mix all those flavors together. It's creamy, it's desserty. Oh, it's so good.
Sounds amazing.
And you?
Cool. Cortados are my absolute favorite. That's the only way I like it. So, what I've got in the pan now, the leeks are beautifully brown, starting to soften. I added the garlic. Everything's smelling amazing right now. So I'm going to add the beans. I like adding the beans now because they're kind of like, they start getting a little crisp on the outside.
Cool. What bean are you using there?
I'm using the butter beans. But being Italian, I'm sure you know like a whole encyclopedia of beans, cannellini beans.
No, I don't know anything about beans, to be honest.
Oh, really?
All I
Okay.
know is beans, good for your heart. That's
Never mind.
the only
Okay,
rhyme
cool.
I know.
So, okay,
but
cool.
explain to me, because the butter beans themselves are quite big ones. If you're talking about baked beans, you'd usually use like a brown bean?
Like a cannellini bean?
Yeah, is that what it's called?
No, that's not like a set thing.
Okay,
You can play around with it, make it your own. So cool, so that's going to pop away nicely. I've got some tomato paste.
Oh, yummy. So that's going to add that richness, that like...
Yeah. And this is a good breakfast dish, I think it is. So Abigail Donnelly is a regular in our loft, so we know her very well. And she was actually my boss. Did you know that?
Okay, no, I didn't know that.
And she taught me this dish. So this is, I'm doing it, she's not here today, so I'm doing it for her, you know?
Great.
I've got some freshly brewed coffee.
Yummy.
I'm gonna let you go. You're gonna pour it in there. I'll tell you when to stop.
What bean
Just
were you
like that.
using? From which origin?
I was actually using the organic ground, which is this one on the end, the white one.
Okay.
And I love it. It's delicious. Oh, even right now, the smells that are coming from the pan are delicious. It's so intense. It's like these flavors actually were meant to go together.
It's yummy. You mentioned that earthiness because you've got like the sharp zestiness of, well, not zestiness, that sharpness of the tomato paste with all of the nice like warm flavors of the onions and garlic as I'm cooking down. That earthy coffee's yum.
There we go. So that's going in there. Got some tomatoes that have gone in. I was like breaking it up in the pan, and I've got some maple syrup. Can you add the maple syrup for me, please, Dan?
Okay, and is this over here? Which one's maple? This one?
That's the one.
How much do you want?
Again, it's up to you when it comes to sweetness, but I mean, let's go for like 3 tablespoons. Done. Maybe 2.
That was 2 tablespoons.
And then what I want to do is add a little more smoke. And I'm going to add smoke by using some smoked chili flakes, smoked paprika, and some hickory smoke liquid. So I'm going to let you again play around with these flavors, and you can kind of make it your own.
It's probably going to be enough.
There we go.
Some of your Spanish smoked paprika.
It's smelling so good right now. Well done,
that's
Abigail.
Delicious.
And then a little bit of the hickory smoked sauce. Now this one, a little bit goes a long way. Just a quick dash.
Like say when is a dash? Like
done.
Oh my word,
there
that's
we
really
go. That's really intense.
Oh, that's super smoky.
Cool.
Smells like a piece of smoked like
bacon.
Yeah, what's this? I can never mind.
Hickory smoked bacon. Yeah.
Hickory,
so what I've done is to add more smokiness, more flavor, and sweetness. I've got some bacon rashers that I've just cooked off, nice and crisp. I'm gonna pop that in there, and then what you got on the side there is this beautiful stewed bean dish, and the coffee aromas are so insane. We're gonna serve that with some crispy bread and butter.
Delicious.
It's going to be amazing.
And dinner / breakfast / lunch / any other meal of the day is served on Afternoon Express. If you want to get all the details on your mobile device, the keyword is coffee. You SMS that to 33650 and all the details will be sent to you. It'll cost you R1.50 and those free SMSs don't apply. If you've just tuned in, here's a quick recap on how this was created.
Thank you for joining us again. We're still on the couch talking about child abuse and the children's rights as outlined in the Children's Act. And this week, it being Child Protection Week, earlier on in the show, we sat down with Aziza Nolan, who's dedicated her life to protecting children who've been victims of abuse or been abandoned.
Yeah, so we learned a bit about the state of child and women abuse in South Africa with Shaheema McLeod from the Saki Bartman Centre. And we also looked at the children's book by author Soraya Hendricks that teaches kids not to trust strangers. We're back on the couch with all three of our guests now. Ladies, thank you. I've been listening so intently to this conversation that you've been having on this couch, and the one thing that I wanted to find out is why people are not being moved enough to act personally. Something must have happened in your lives to be able to say, my life cannot continue moving forward in my direction of climbing corporate ladders, raising families, etc., when there are people going through what they're going through. Why are people like myself and others not being moved enough to act and to give up their lives to serve young children and women?
Well, I think it takes a certain kind of person to want to be involved in this work on a daily basis. For me personally, it's the fact that I'm a mother. And for me, I have a responsibility and a duty to protect our young children. And what sort of legacy do we want to leave for our children? How are they going to feel safe in a society that has become so numb and desensitized by what is happening around them?
But I'm not a policeman, I'm not a politician, I'm not somebody who's involved in these centres. What can I do? What should I do?
I think start by conversations. This is a great way of starting it. Those uncomfortable topics that no one wants to talk about. We spoke about it earlier, sweeping it under the rug. That's what people do if they don't feel at ease about disclosing something that has happened to them or to their little ones, or tackling situations on head-on.
Yeah, and just for the parents watching out there, and I mean, as a parent sitting here on the couch throughout this conversation, I keep wondering, am I having enough conversations with my sons about who's speaking to them inappropriately or touching them inappropriately, or is there any hint of that in their space? And how do parents just intervene, and how do they begin to have that conversation? What are the important questions that you need to be asking your children daily in your home about what's happening to them?
In the older generation, it was like, you don't need to talk about sexual abuse. We're in a different generation now, where we have to talk. Even if a child is 2 years old, or even 3 years old, up to 10, 11, ask questions.
Yeah.
Start with the body parts. Use the proper words. A child can go to the school and say, oh, my father is sore. The assistant or the teachers, what is the child talking about? Start using the words, the proper penis and vagina.
Yes.
That's the words we need to start. Because then if a child can come to you and say, the ankle touch, or I hurt myself, or it's sore, you need to listen to the child. Secondly, bath time. As old as your child is, go in, do bath, ask questions. Many times, I have experienced 3-4-year-olds. When I do the bath, I can see something is wrong. If I look at the underwear, there's something on the underwear. Why? Then you start asking questions. So it's simple things. Again, nightmares. The child is going to start having nightmares. She's going to pull back, he's going to pull back. A lot of people. The talking, the interaction. The school. A child doesn't want to go to school. He's going to be the one who used to be the A+ in the class, but's going to pull back. Questions. Teachers, start taking note. Kids are at school 60% of their life.
Right.
That's where the questions comes. I had also experience where a child will be sitting in a class for 6 months. The child was one of the top students, and all of a sudden, behavioral problem. Again, the teacher said, you know, the child doesn't do his work, the child doesn't do this, all the negative. But go to the child and just observe.
No human child is meant to be like that. They're not, a good, healthy child is not showing those signs and the symptoms to push them away. And I think one of the things that I'm also starting to realize through your conversation is that not a lot of us are creating safe environments for people to have these conversations. Parents aren't showing love to children, peers aren't showing love to their friends, teachers aren't showing love to students. And so there isn't a safe space to have this conversation. And as an adult, I feel so ill-equipped to be able to have this conversation. Even if you told me you were being abused, I would have no idea how to align with you and really love you in that space. Do you guys have any wisdom?
I just, as a parent, I don't have a social work degree, but I know that I'm going to operate off my gut instinct. So simply being a good parent means knowing your child implicitly well, knowing them completely. And if their behavior patterns change, there's the reason for that happening. You need to respond to that, probe them, ask them questions about what is making them uncomfortable about being around Joe Soap, you know. They need to feel that they have the ability to trust you and that you are going to respond in an appropriate way that will make them feel safe again.
What is the best way to approach a child, or what kind of environment or atmosphere do you need to create to make sure that your child is so secure that they'll speak about what's happening to them?
Love. If you have love in your house, if you're open to your children, every night you talk about, it's our time. Let's talk about us. They can come. They can talk about the school, they can talk about anything, and then we will say, okay, now what do you feel that you don't feel happy about today? They will think once or twice, and then it's going to come out. But when I had kids that I worked with that come in 5 minutes, they come in as abuse, in 5 minutes, just sitting and talking to them. And I will just ask one question, body language. Immediately the face goes down. Then I know something is wrong here. And then I start taking that and then start working around, let them answer. They ask me questions and I work around it. And then, you know, I'm sitting with a child that had been child trafficking.
Sure.
But just to listen and to speak, let a child feel comfortable.
Exactly, I love that. Create a loving environment for young children, especially if this is at your home or at your school. If you're interacting with any young child, imagine that could be the only experience they could have of love in that day, to be able to express who they truly are and to expose those parts in a loving space could change their lives forever and prevent these kinds of circumstances. Hope you guys are continuing the conversation online. #Afternoon Express.
Yeah, we trust that you're enjoying the show, and thank you so much for all of your questions and comments online. Now, stick with us, because after the break, we're going to be coming back to you in the kitchen, making some delicious chocolate brownies.
Live scratch-free with new Head & Shoulders African Scalp Care.
Welcome back to Afternoon Express, and we're about to get really sweet in this kitchen. Now, we're combining two daily necessities, in my opinion, coffee and chocolate.
That's not bad for you.
No, they're both amazing for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so how are we combining them? We're making brownies?
We're doing brownies, but the brownies actually going to have a coffee ground in them.
Okay.
And what's really cool is coffee brings out the flavor of chocolate and vice versa. So one of the best chocolate cakes you'll ever have is like those dense, dark chocolate cakes. You know the movie Matilda?
Yes.
The one that the kid, it's that one.
And is it going to be moist?
It's
like
going to
when
be
you
moist.
bite it, it's kind
going
of
to
moist.
be moist. But we're going to make it even more moist.
Yeah.
We're going to put an espresso syrup in there.
Well, I'm going to impress the pants off of my guests by learning this amazing recipe. Teach me how from the very beginning. Make it simple so that even I can understand
And it is a very simple recipe. So butter and chocolate be melted together over a double boiler.
This is butter and chocolate. Oh,
butter and chocolate. I know.
Can't I just lick the bowl?
You can. Okay, we'll make sure we keep it aside.
Okay.
So I'm going to put it into a big mixing bowl because things are going to get very messy if I work in this tiny bowl.
Yeah.
And you can't waste any chocolate. But we know it's not going to waste because someone's going to have the bowl afterwards. So it's fine. Just like that.
Oh, you even left me some extra. Thank you.
Quite a bit.
I know.
So into this straight away. Straight away, we're going to go with some eggs. Now, I'm going to ask you to give me a hand. You're going to keep on stirring as I drop them in one at a time?
Sure. Go for it.
And you can do this in the machine, but it's such a simple recipe that you can just do it in one bowl.
Okay.
Doing a good job.
Plop.
Go. Mix, mix,
Got
mix.
2 eggs.
And you go. There we go.
My third.
3 in. So what I'll do now, here come our espresso coffee grounds, and it is so intense with flavour. And that's
Okay, delish.
You see, and it's not too much. It's going to be super delicious.
Is this going to be a caffeinated brownie? So if I eat this, am I going to get a lot of energy?
You are, and you're going to get so much done in your day.
Yeah, this
There
is
we go.
perfect. So this is kind of the perfect brownie to have for breakfast, no?
And lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And all in between. But yes, it is. That beautiful. You get that chocolate kick in there. I mean, the coffee kick in there.
And
it's
the
super
chocolate
delicious.
cake. Ooh, and I'm going to fold it for you.
In goes some
Just
flour.
doing a good job here.
Doing so well. You see what I mean? You don't need the big machine for this. It's pretty simple, just doing it straight into the bowl.
Well, you know what? My brother always said I was a stirrer.
Once that's all mixed
there you
together,
go.
you're just going to pop it in a baking tray, and then it goes into the oven. And it literally cooks for about, I say like 20 minutes. You cook it.
This is that.
Just that. So the less you cook it, the more ooey gooiness you get in it.
Yeah.
I mean, which is fine, but just don't underdo it because remember you're going to be adding a syrup to it as well.
Okay, yeah, but we do like it a little gooey. Hey?
We do, and guarantee this one is going to be gooey.
Yeah,
so give
I
it
like
a good, just like that. That's fine. And a little bit of lump in this one is not bad. Normally you make sure that you get all the lumps out, but this one's perfectly fine. That's perfect. So let's just get that in there.
Okay.
And again, if there's any leftovers in the bowl, it's going to be perfectly fine for someone to get at it. So yeah, so just keep on going, get it in there. What's really cool is you can actually make this, pop it into the bacon tray, and then you actually just keep it in the fridge for like 2 days.
Does that rise to that?
Well, you're going to level it out a little more.
Okay.
And then what you do is you let it cool slightly, and you pour the syrup over. Can I tell you? Let's get into that syrup just very quickly.
Okay.
So evaporated milk. Just like that.
Evaporated milk?
Evaporated milk.
I'm not even going to ask what that is.
Well, basically, it's just milk that's just been boiled for a long time just to intensify its flavour. Some espresso goes in.
Okay. More.
More.
Okay.
Brown sugar. So let's just turn up the heat on this guy.
That just looks like a good coffee at the moment.
It does. And it probably is going to be one of the best tasting coffees you've ever had.
Yeah.
So let me take the heat up a little bit here quickly. So that's going to keep on simmering. The sugar's going to melt. You're going to end up having a delicious sauce. So I like doing it in stages of 3. So it's had its second soaking already. So this is last soaking. Just drizzle that over there. And we let it do its thing and just soak. It becomes super delicious, decadent and chocolatey and coffee. It's insane. It's so delicious.
Look at that just being soaked in. So if you two would love the experience of this coffee-soaked brownie, all you need to do is SMS the keyword sweet to 33650. SMSs cost R1.50 each and no free SMSs apply. T's and C's apply, all the rest, but it's definitely going to be worth your while because this is delicious. Here's a quick recap.
So I do not know how we're going to sleep this evening with coffee 3 ways at the table tonight. It's probably the first time we've done it. But I don't think I can leave the show today unimpacted.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a very moving subject, and this is only the beginning of all the work that is ahead of us as a country.
Exactly.
Shaheema had some really important comments about creating these loving environments for families, I mean, and for children at school, in public, whatever spaces you can find them in. If you can find a space to create a loving environment for a child, all the stuff will be able to come out and we'll be able to solve these issues one at a time. And to all of those men out there who are involved in all spheres of society who don't treat this with empathy, just know that we're coming for you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again next week. Until then, good night and happy eating.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.
Another feel-good production.